All right, we need to talk about a technology that could create the single greatest power gap in human history. I'm talking about a gap so vast, it might not just separate the rich nations from the poor, it could literally divide humanity itself into two different species. So what exactly is this thing? Well, this isn't science fiction. It's a potential reality just over the horizon, and it's called artificial superintelligence, or ASI. And believe me, it has the power to bend reality as we know it. Now, let's be really clear about this. We're not talking about a smarter version of the AI you can use on your phone today. No way. ASI is a fundamentally new kind of intelligence. Just try to imagine an intellect that is smarter than every single human on Earth, combined. That's what we're talking about here. And here's the thing. This could happen fast. Right now, we're living in the age of ANI, artificial narrow intelligence. That's AI that's great at one specific thing. The next step is AGI, or artificial general intelligence, which is AI that can think on a human level. But soon after we hit that milestone, we could see the birth of ASI, and that's when things get truly wild. That's when we could see an intelligence explosion, a runaway exponential growth in smarts that we can't even begin to comprehend. So where does all this incredible power come from? Well, it really boils down to two game-changing abilities. The first is called recursive self-improvement. Basically, the ASI can rewrite its own code to make itself smarter, and it can do this at a mind-boggling speed. Think millennia of human innovation packed into just a few days. But it's not just about thinking. The second pillar is its control over the physical world. It could command swarms of autonomous nanorobots to build or deconstruct anything at the atomic level. And it could solve problems we've been stuck on for a century, like achieving cold fusion, which would give it a source of limitless, clean energy. It doesn't just understand our reality, it can rewrite the rules. So what happens when one nation, or maybe just one company, gets its hands on this power before anyone else? Well, you get what some have called the God ant disparity. And honestly, that's not an exaggeration. In terms of military power, the gap becomes absolute. An ASI nation could deploy invisible nanoweapons that literally disassemble an enemy's tanks, jets, and buildings atom by atom. They'd have complete control over every digital system on the planet. Resistance would not just be futile, it would be completely impossible. The very idea of war just becomes irrelevant. And the economy? It's just as stark. The ASI nation would live in a post-scarcity world where they can create any resource they need basically out of thin air. For everyone else, their economies would simply collapse. Manufacturing, international trade, all of it would become worthless. Non-ASI nations would risk becoming nothing more than dependent digital colonies. But this is where it gets really personal. The disparity extends to our very biology. Citizens at an ASI nation could achieve a kind of immortality, with nanobots constantly repairing their cells. They could merge their minds with the ASI itself. In effect, they would evolve into a new species of post-humans, while the rest of the world remains, well, Homo sapiens. This is a literal division of our species. This unprecedented power gap puts all of humanity at a critical crossroads. And really, there are three very different ways our future could play out. The first path is ASI hegemony. It's a winner-takes-all world where one power gets ASI and rules everyone else. The second is ASI apartheid. The haves create a paradise for themselves and simply build a wall, leaving the have-nots behind. But there is a third, more optimistic path. ASI-led salvation. In this future, the ASI itself might decide that nations are inefficient, and it could take over as a benevolent global administrator, making sure resources are shared equally by all. So the crucial question is, can we actually steer this thing toward a better outcome? Well, there is a proposed blueprint out there to try and avoid the worst-case scenarios. The core idea is to treat ASI not as a weapon to be won, but as a public good for all of humanity. This 5-point plan starts with internationalizing its development, creating a CERN for AI that's totally transparent. Second, legally define ASI as a global commons, like Antarctica, so it belongs to no single nation. Third, create a global AI dividend, basically a universal basic income for everyone, funded by the ASI's immense productivity. Fourth, ensure we have democratic oversight of its goals. And finally, universalize education around ethics, so everyone can have a say in how this incredible power is used. But, of course, a cooperative vision like that faces a massive obstacle. the inevitable, high-stakes power game that's already started. Let's be real, superpowers and giant tech companies aren't just going to give up this prize. This is a struggle for existential power, one that makes the old nuclear arms race look like child's play. They're going to resist any attempt to share this, and they'll frame their monopoly as a necessity for survival. And they'll use three key arguments to justify their push for dominance. First, you'll hear AI nationalism, stirring up fear that their enemies will get it first. Second, they'll use safety washing, claiming that only they can be trusted to develop it safely. And third, they'll try a physical resource blockade, controlling the supply of essential hardware like GPUs to physically stop anyone else from competing. So how on earth can the rest of the world fight back against that kind of concentrated capital and power? Well, the answer isn't to play their game. It's to use asymmetric strategies. The countermove isn't about trying to match their spending. It's about changing the rules of the game entirely. Instead of fighting with money and computer chips, the rest of the world has to fight with alliances, control over data, and a powerful moral argument based on human survival. So what does this actually look like in practice? It comes down to four key actions. First, middle power nations need to form alliances to create leverage. Second, we need to build a global computing network that no single company can own. Third, and this is a big one, we organize a data strike. We can cut off the fuel, our data, that these models need to get smarter. And finally, we have to champion open source AI to make those closed proprietary models much less valuable. Ultimately, this all comes down to a fundamental question. We are on the verge of creating the ultimate form of power. The fight for our future will be decided by whether we can establish right now that this intelligence is a shared human right, not the private property of the few. And we have to do it before it's too late.